Family, are we well overdue for this or what? Just a few things have happened in the world of the West Coast Eagles since we last did a podcast. Drew Jones has been gallivanting around the globe. I've had a few things going on in my life, so we thought we'd just let that all settle down and then get into some massive issues. A new coach, massive news in the trade department that's had Eagles fans in a spin and a half, new players coming in. It's exciting times, and there is so much to take stock of, Drew, and I'm sure you're well refreshed for the chat after traversing the globe in recent times. Welcome back.
Bonjour, Danielle. It's so good to be back. Hey, Paris was the last stop. We've done a little Melbourne Cup action, just settled back in, celebrated my 34th birthday, massive on the milestone. Ben Sharp, 34. And congratulations to you, Daniel, on the now expecting your first child.
Another Eagles supporter. I mean, we need membership numbers to be boosted at West Coast, don't we? So we thought we'd try and add to that. But another Eagles supporter on the way. We're expecting a boy in April, which is very exciting. My father-in-law is a massive Sydney Swans fan, but I'm letting him know in no uncertain terms, this is not how it works, mate. He follows the father. And until he's old enough to make his own decisions, well, that's how it's going to be. So, we're very excited. Fair bit's been going on.
So you're leaning towards Judd as the first name, Judd Garb, or is it more of a Peter Garb? It's probably a bit old school, isn't it?
I'm a big Liverpool fan, as people would know. And
Fernando.
Adam Peacock said yesterday, I'm looking forward to meeting Jurgen Arne Garb in the future. So that got a bit of a laugh. But we'll wait and see. Judd, that's not a bad name. I might just suggest that one to the wife tonight and have it swiftly rejected.
Judd Garb. It rolls off the tongue well, especially if he's bouncing off half back at Optus Stadium for West Coast. It's going to go down very well. But
I'll tell you what we can call him for now. We can call him for now. This will fit perfectly. What about Mini?
Mini Garb. But congratulations. That's
thanks, mate.
That's a massive thing. So congratulations to you and the missus. Honestly, when I texted you while I was away, I was in Poland at the time, in Zakopane, which is where that photo came from, which we put on the socials. The little fresh produce shop called Garb. And it was just so funny because literally that morning I said to Izza, I was like, I feel like I want to do like an emergency podcast because of all the stuff that was happening in trade period. But the timing in terms of me actually leaving Australia and Andrew McQualter getting announced as our coach was a little bit unfortunate that we couldn't do something. But we've had a little time for it all to sink in. We even heard from him yesterday. On Monday, we're recording on a Tuesday. Heard from him speaking to the media, gave us a few little nuggets as well. So give us your overall thoughts on Andrew McQualter, the new West Coast permanent coach.
It feels really good at the moment. I mean, we will follow the process as closely as we can. Or could, but my understanding was that the Eagles were extremely thorough and professional in their process. A few people who were part of it said to me they were blown away by how well West Coast conducted the search, but they also kept their cards very close to their chest, and they were extremely private and didn't let much get out. Towards the end, we knew the candidates. Brett Montgomery dropped out, gets down to the final three: King, Skipworth, McQualter. A lot of people thought Stephen King might be the favourite because he had a reasonable stint at Gold Coast. So maybe he looked like he had a bit of a harder edge to him, which perhaps this Eagles list needed. Skipworth was viewed as the smart guy who can link well with the players, but maybe doesn't have that aura just yet to be a head coach. McQualter, to me, seems like the best balance between the two. And now that he's got the job and we've seen him speak and his persona, etc., I think Eagles fans feel very comfortable. It sounds like he wants to bring that Richmond system in to the way that we play. It looks like he'll be able to connect with the players really well. In the few interviews he's done already, the understanding of the playing group seems extremely high already. Like you can tell he's already got an idea in his mind of where he wants guys to play, how he's going to set up his best 22, even though guys will have the chance to prove themselves, of course, and spots will be very much open. I think Eagles fans feel enthused by what's possible. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of Andrew's, just for the dealings that I've had with him professionally. So I was sort of happy that he got the job, and I wondered whether that was based on sort of personal biases, perhaps towards Mini just from working with him over the years, or whether it was, just a general feeling that I had. But I think when you say the balanced choice between, say, Skipworth, King, and probably you could even throw Montgomery in there in terms of what they bring, I think it makes a lot of sense on paper. He comes from a successful program. So he knows about winning premierships. He knows how to bring a list together. He's worked with Damien Hardwick, obviously closely. And then he gets to work with Simon Goodwin. What ended up being a really dysfunctional Melbourne Football Club last season. And I actually think it's good that he got that experience to say, okay, here's what you don't do. And here's what happens when personalities get out of control and stuff off the field starts going wrong. Like, he's seen both sides now. There was little mishaps at Richmond along the way, if you think about in the hub with Sydney Stack and just little bits and pieces. So he's kind of seen a lot of different angles, different football clubs. He went up to the Gold Coast and experienced probably a little bit of dysfunction there. And then playing days under Ross, I'm sure had some experience, and that he'll draw from that as well at St Kilda. Getting to grand finals, he was a trusted player. And I just spoke to Alan Richardson yesterday at Melbourne training, who just said, great with people and don't be fooled by his persona. Publicly, he's got a harder edge to him when he needs to, which I saw last season. So, yeah, nice. All the reports are good, and that makes me feel good. And publicly, from what I've seen from him, he seems to be buying in and doing. There's a different kind of energy that we're getting from him, which is what we really wanted from a new coach. And he seems earnest. Like, I was trying to pick out the words that best described him, but yeah, I get this really nice sense and really nice feeling from him when he speaks publicly. So yeah, he seems absolutely well and truly up for it. He seems like he's primed for it. He's ready to go, and he gets a young list to work with, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and look, even just watching the video yesterday the Eagles sent out, which was great insight, just having the fresh voice, and that's nothing against the previous setup, but we all know that it lingered for too long, and I think you all just look back and go, oh, just this fresh idea, a fresh voice, a fresh translation of how we're going to do things. Not that he's reinventing the wheel of AFL football. I think just resonates with everyone at the moment. He's got a massive job to do. And for me, the biggest thing, look, there's game plans that need to be remodeled, of course, and players' confidence that needs to be lifted. The biggest thing for me is the standards and getting this team up to a level now where they can produce high-quality football quarter to quarter, week to week, more often in the season. We saw it on occasions last year, and then we'd have these big dips, and that's been the way for the last 3-4 years, really. And the drop-offs have just been too severe. And no one's saying that the Eagles have to make the 8, but the standards of what's acceptable to be competitive at AFL level needs to improve dramatically, quarter to quarter, week to week. And that's his number one challenge. I do think he can do that. I do think we can have a season where we won 5 games last year. I think we can improve and be around the 7 or 8 mark. I really think that's possible with the recruits, with the youngsters developing, with the new approach. If we have a good injury run in the preseason, I think that is possible, and that would certainly get us up and about next season.
Well, if you think about one of the hallmarks of Richmond during Damien Hardwick's time as coach, consistency. Like their worst performance and their best football, there wasn't a huge gap between that. They didn't have many shockers. So I'm sure that will be a part of what he brings. And of course, he'll add his own flavour to it. But I loved yesterday in the press conference when he was asked about what we can expect from this team. And straight away, he was like, we want to be fast. We want to turn the ball over as quickly as possible. And that gives us the best chance to set up the field the way that we want and give us the best chance to score and control the game. And I liked it. You love hearing something from a new coach where he's like, yeah, this is what we want to do. So it gives us something to say, okay, we're going to set our brand. And as fans and people who are watching West Coast, we know that there's a baseline of expectation. There's no wishy-washy stuff. I remember David Noble at North Melbourne was like, oh, we want to attack. We want to score. We want to entertain. But it's just fluff.
Yeah.
Like, you come out in round one and your team gets butchered defensively and then it all goes down the drain. Whereas this is like a proper identity thing of saying, okay, our goal, our aim as a team, our brand is when we don't have it, we're going to turn over as quick as we can and then attack and score off the back of that. So I love that. And then he was open with stuff about Ruben playing down back, Baker playing down back, which straight away I was like, okay, so our back six, straight away we can get a little bit of a feel for what it's going to be. McGovern holding down the key with Edwards, and then you've got Baker rebounding, you've got Jimby playing as the hybrid back, you got Hoff, who's one of the best lockdowns in the comp. So okay, that gives me a good picture of what we're going to do, which I love that.
Yeah, and then obviously you got your Tommy Coles and Liam Duggan, who can play halfback and midfield, who's sitting there as well. I like Baker down back. I loved his rationale for that, which was he wins contest. He wins contest so often. He's probably one of the best contest winners in the competition. And with Cripps and Owies now, Noah Long coming back, hopefully Brockman delivering, we've got options up forward. To me, it makes sense. You play Baker down back to win us the ball down there and just give us a bit more composure and a bit of drive. So I like that he was open about that. And I liked his comment yesterday in the video, which was, it's not about kicks, marks and handballs. It's about what you can do to help the team win. It sounds so simple, but sometimes when you simplify things in any sport for athletes, it just provides us clarity. And it's not about getting 25 possessions. Don't worry about that. Worry about you playing your role, which was the Richmond way, wasn't it? Anyone who's ever played fantasy, anyone who's ever played fantasy knows Richmond players suck in fantasy.
Yeah,
they never scored.
You get Jaden Short, like one of their halfbackers or Basher would get their biggest score and their 25 touches, and then no one else would score above 80, maybe Dusty.
Yeah, because that was so efficient. Yes. And if we can get a bit of that in our game, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So, and this is a question without notice, but in your mind, are there drawbacks to the McQualter decision? Like, I want to try to balance out this conversation, if possible, a little bit. Are there negatives to this? And also worth noting, just quickly, what a sounding board for him to have in John Worsfold, bringing him back to the club.
Great that Wish has come back, and that role is so general, isn't it? I think it's so much about Wisher coming here. You assess what needs doing, and you assess when you need to insert yourself in a situation. But just having you around the club daily for our AFLW, for our Waffle team, for our AFL team to lean on is just huge. And just his presence. Yeah, he's the most successful person in our football club, bar none. So, if he's available, you've got to get him around. And in that role, perfect for him. So, love that. I mean, drawbacks for me, look, the question mark, again, is around aura. I know you've had that feedback from Alan Richardson, and I'm sure Andrew McQualter's seen enough in his time that he knows when he needs to give a bit of a rev up and give push a certain button, he can do it. But that's still a question mark because he does come across as more of a connector with players. And maybe potentially lacking that edge. So we'll watch out for that, of course. Outside of that, okay, he's not a double premiership winning coach. He hasn't got all that experience in the world. There are going to be times early on where he's tested. It's going to be challenging. And any person who has not coached before, even though he had that stint at Richmond, can feel the pressure of that. So, of course, there's slight concern there. But outside of that, in terms of getting a new coach, there aren't too many things that I am overly concerned about, considering where he's developed his coaching resume, the fact that he's had an introduction to it as well, and the way in which he's presented so far.
Yeah, I don't have any huge concerns. The aura thing is, if he was coming off a career where he'd won 3 flags, or he had a record like James Hird or Michael Voss or whatever, that's always nice to lean on. It didn't really guarantee any success for those people. John Worsfold won 2 flags, and is, as you said, the most successful player and person in our football club history. So in that case, yes, on-field success and aura, that did work for West Coast. That did work for Woosha. But we are in a different time now, and also Woosha wasn't the greatest. Woosha wasn't the greatest player of all time. He had, he was hard as nails and laid big hits, and absolutely down in our folklore as a huge person as a player in our history. But he wasn't necessarily the most skilled or the most spectacular with ball in hand. So I think there's no guarantees that aura that you may carry due to your achievements in the game doesn't necessarily guarantee you anything. So I'm not sure it's a huge drawback. And it seems to me like that in the end, with Skipworth and McQualter, they were leaning towards a certain model of coach, which to me seems like the relationships, the connections, the development.
Yeah.
That's that kind of people person, which Skipworth also very tactically sharp was something that was in his favour, certainly. So, yeah.
And if you look at the last two premiership coaches, McRae and Fagan, they are both of that mould. So that shows you that things are changing. I mean, Fagan might be older, but he's not a rancher and a raver.
No. And one thing that McRae said to me once, or said to, a question that I asked at a presser was, he said, I'll always lean towards be kind to people and see what they can achieve.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, then that's when you can start, using the stick and not the carrot. But that, to me, McQualter is in the camp of be kind and be inclusive, put an arm around a player and give them every chance to succeed that way first. And I get the sense that that's what he's going to do.
All right. We need to get onto the trades and the recruiting, because that was a massive talking point for the Eagles. Just quickly before we do that, the delistings. So a number of changes, maybe a couple more than we expected. For me, there weren't huge surprises overall in terms of any of them. I thought one of Rotham or Witherden would have stayed. I thought one would have. And personally, I would have liked Witherden to be given one more year. I think there's more upside there. I thought he had a few good games this year. But you can understand why he's been cut. Rotham, I saw coming. And Jai Cully was the one that I think we all hoped as Eagles fans he'd be given another chance, because, you feel for him. He was looking really good. Rising star, kicks 4 against Port, then does his knee and hasn't been given another chance since and has dominated in the waffle. We know the knock on him. It's pace. I think we all just felt he deserved another go somewhere. Maybe he'll get it at another club. But he's the one you felt for. But obviously the Eagles staff are watching him a lot closer than us.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was with you. I wanted to see him get more of a chance. But in the end, I guess there's just only so many midfield spots to go around. And he was far enough back in the pecking order and wasn't able to play another position. So I understand it. I think McQualter mentioned yesterday that Kobe Bergil's being given a chance to win a spot back. So they're going to have one spot open for SPP. So we wait to see how that pans out. I don't have much more to say on the delistings. I mean, yeah, I'm probably with you as well. I thought Rotham or Witherden and one of the two would stay, but they've cleaned house out there. So, So you were probably a bit more logged on and tuned in than me during the trade period as I was overseas, although I was following it quite closely. Take us through your thoughts on the Barras situation, the Hawthorn pick trade, and then how it's all landed for us. Yeah,
so, I mean, we caused the biggest storm of trade week. Eagles fans did with their reaction, and I understand a lot of it. First things first, we could have just done the straight trade with Hawthorn for Barras and passed that pick on to Richmond for Baker and still kept pick 3. So we could have done that. Hawthorn changed things a bit in the end by getting a little bit annoyed that we were posturing, made the deal with Carlton, that flipped things around. That actually probably worked in our favour a bit because we got a great return for Barras in the end. I mean, a future pick 1, pick 2 and pick 3. Like, we are so stacked for next year. And I think there's a chance we trade back into this year's draft. So I think a lot of the Eagles fans' concerns will be alleviated anyway. I can see us trading future second perhaps or a future first for a pick in this year's draft. I expect that to happen, but we'll have to wait and see. If not, I mean, we're loaded if Chad Warner comes on the scene next year, aren't we? With a whole bevy of picks, which could be interesting. But in terms of the deal that was done in the end, moving back from pick 3 to pick 12 and getting Baker and Owies, I completely understand the concerns. You look through the draft in the last few years, and the majority of guns that come out of the draft come in the top 5. And this year's draft is very strong, and there's a lot of excitement around those top 5 picks. But everything we've been told is that this year's draft is very even across the first 15 picks or so, and that there are guns there. And that there are guys who are going to go around pick 15 who in other years would go pick 6 or pick 7. So when you consider that we've moved back from pick 3 to pick 12, we haven't traded our pick 3, by the way. I kind of feel like that got lost in translation a little bit. We haven't traded it out. We just moved back from pick 3 to pick 12 and got Liam Baker and Matt Owies as part of that. Liam Baker is a gun player who can add a lot to our team now and a lot to our standards off the field. And Matt Owies is a $30 a season small forward who, yes, we might have got for nothing, but we got him as part of this deal. There are intangibles in this, Drew, I think that I don't think enough Eagles fans have looked at. The intangibles are, for me, we need to improve our standards dramatically, right? And getting players in like Baker, Owies, and Graham can hopefully just refresh what is required on the field and off the field to prepare for games. And we've lost our way in that sense. That can't be denied. So that helps us straight away in terms of lifting standards to make the team more competitive, so that when future young players do come in, there's a better framework there than what exists at the moment. We also have to try and keep a certain player called Harley Reid happy sooner rather than later. That's just a fact. Like we've got an opportunity here with a ridiculous asset. And if we win 5 games by the halfway point of next season, he might sign on for 2 more years. We go winless to the halfway point of next season, you might say to his manager, enough's enough. I want to move at the end of this year. I'm not signing a new deal. Like, that is a realistic situation. So you kind of have to play that ball as it lies. And maybe you do chase a bit more success early on by getting those 2 players in and move back in the draft as a result to try and improve the performance levels to maybe help Harley and to help the new coach settle in as well. And you're not losing a young player, but like you've given away a pick. You've just moved from pick 3 to pick 12. We might get a very good player anyway, a Bo Allen or a Xavier Lindsay or a Toby Travaglia, the players that are being connected with us. And, it might all end up being a better case scenario. Now, if pick 12 ends up being a bust and pick 3 is a superstar and Baker and Owies become journeymen and we don't improve much, well, then you can criticize that enormously. But we'll only know in time what the outcome will be. And I think there is reason to be more enthused than a lot of Eagles fans are by what is possible considering the move that we've done.
Yeah, so I think if you ask West Coast now, they'll say, we believe that pick 12 and Liam Baker in our team next year and for the next 5 years is a net positive on just pick 3.
Yeah.
And we can't judge it now. But yeah, I mean, in theory, yes, pick 3 will be better than pick 12. But I sent you this text on the 19th of October. If GWS did actually reject pick 3 for picks 15 and 16, which we offered, that just shows everyone knows how even this draft is.
Yeah.
Because there's no way known that you would turn down 15 and 16 for pick 3 unless you knew something about the depth of the draft. And I think that shows to me that GWS and probably every other team doesn't believe that you're necessarily getting a much better player at pick 3 than you are in the teens. So I think that should make us feel, as West Coast fans, just a little better about the fact that, yeah, pick 3 might end up being an absolute superstar, but we're hedging our bets that there's actually 15 or 16 or 18 really good players available. And ultimately, it's not a great year to have necessarily pick 3 ahead of, say, pick 8 or pick 9 because it's all going to be the same. NBA just went through it with their draft. Like next year, there's a superstar player at pick 1. The year before, it was a superstar in Wembanyama. But this draft just gone. There were no superstars. So your top line picks were a bit worthless compared to other years. So sometimes this just happens.
Yeah.
And this year, those high picks just weren't worth quite as much. We just went through it with Harley Reid. We had pick 1.
Exactly. And we rejected. Yes. We rejected so many offers for him, right?
Yeah. And understandably so. And I'm 100% with you on this is not a bottom-out North Melbourne rebuild because we have potentially a generational player. So
exactly.
And then he's in a different situation to normal where he's like he didn't grow up in the Golden Triangle and he's just going to stay in Perth forever. Like he could want to go back to Victoria. We need to make this an environment that he wants to be at, and the best way to do that is W's. So that's why I banged on about getting Tim English because I was like, we get him for nothing, and he makes our team better straight away. That didn't work out. That's fine. Maybe we didn't even go that hard for him. I don't know. But Baker makes us better. He slots into halfback. He's good. And Graham's going to be tough and he's going to give us something. And Owies is going to be wholehearted and we're going to end up loving him, I think, because he celebrates hard and he plays for his teammates. He's going to do the hard things. So, and pick 12, I'm sure is going to be great. And if he's not, well, that's fine because the draft picks don't always pan out anyway.
Yeah.
But I think the gripe that I can understand is it's like, okay, so maybe we could have got this deal done without getting rid of 3. And also, theoretically, we had the ability to walk Baker to the preseason draft. But I understand that gripe. And yes, in a perfect world, I would have loved to have done that. But also, we obviously gave Baker, our word that we wouldn't fuck over Richmond because he cares about the club. So we did the right thing.
I also don't believe we could have walked him to the draft because Baker said, well, it was reported from the outset, he wanted the best return for Richmond. There's every chance he goes to Freo if the Eagles don't do a deal. He just says, well, include me as part of the Bolton deal then. Like, I want Richmond to get something. And also, Don Pike made a great point. If you do that, fine, you might get away with it 1 year. You will get screwed over in time.
Yep.
Comes 2 years down the track, you've got to trade back with Richmond for something, and they go, stuff you blokes. We ain't doing it.
Yeah.
We'll walk this player to the draft, or we'll screw you over some other way. People remember that stuff. It's the same in business. You screw over someone in business, you don't think they're going to come back for you? Like, it happens. So I don't think it's the way that we should have gone about it. Now, is pick 14 too much for Baker? Maybe. But we also got Owies as part of it. And, he might add it. He's a very good player at his day. So it's just the way. We didn't have much more to offer either. We didn't have that much more to offer. The other argument that people made, Drew, was, pick 3 is a superstar more often than not. Whereas, pick 12 is more hit and miss. And that is correct. Ends up being pick 15 by the time we got to the draft. And they made points of Jared Brander in recent times and Campbell Chesser. Yeah, Brander was a bust, but we got some pretty good picks after him. And we've got a very good record of players from pick 10, between pick 10 and pick 30 over the years. And Chesser, yes, hasn't worked out yet. He might still do. Hopefully, this is going to be the make or break year. But the 2 players we could have taken if we hadn't have slid down a couple of spots in that draft are Josh Sin and Ben Hobbs. Now, neither player set the world alight. Sin looked all right in the finals for Port, but he's barely broken into their side. Hobbs can't get in the Essendon team. So it's not as if the players around that were being bandied about around that selection, we missed an absolute gun. So there needs to be that part of the argument added in as well for mine.
So just quickly on the stocking up of picks for next year. I think both of our firm beliefs that Chad will come back to WA, whether it's the end of next season or the season after that, or whenever it is. I think has he got 1 more year on his contract? Maybe.
Yeah, so I think if he leaves at the end of 25.
Yeah, so, and I think West Coast are absolutely in the box seat to get him. The only thing I feel like is you don't want to get stuck in the situation that Freo were in where you've got too much.
Yeah.
Because then they had to pay a massive price for Bolton. So I think between now and this draft, we just need to work out what's the right amount to have to trade for Warner, but not have too much, because you don't want too much. So I'd love to trade back. I would love to trade back into this draft and get another sort of top 20 or 25 pick if we can make that work somehow.
I think we will.
And then just leave ourselves with, we've got our pick and we've got Carlton's pick next year, or pick next year, and then it's like, okay, here you go. That's our offer for Chad Warner. 2 firsts.
So Chad's in play, and then there's still this year's draft where there are a number of really good players available. Now, of course, we don't know, but based on the phantom drafts and the highlights we've watched and everything we're reading, there are a few players that I think Eagles fans are hoping we get. Bo Allen would have to be number 1 because he's a WA boy, played waffle footy, looks really strong, fits our needs, and is probably the best WA player across 2 years. So, while you go for the best player available when there's that situation, all right, you try and nab them ideally. Then there's Toby Travaglia, who they rate highly. And the one that I kind of hope, if Bo Allen's gone, that we get is Xavier Lindsay. The talk is he might go top 10, that he's being rated too low on phantom drafts. But you talk about a left-footed ball user, ball magnet, smart footballer, Colby McQualter type. If we can get him, I think Eagles fans will be really happy. So there are a few players there that are being looked at that I think would alleviate again a lot of those concerns if we can nab one of those players. And there's every chance we will, based on the speculation around the draft at the moment.
Xavier Lindsay, love, and then Bo Allen. I think the local factor. I like his potential as well. So I'm with you on those names. I'm pretty keen to have a good chat with Benny Waterworth, and he can give us some other names as well, which hopefully we can get through the nest pipes. But yeah, I'm excited for the draft as always. Little less excited because we don't have such a high pick, but I'm hoping we can do another deal and get into maybe back into the first round, but at least another decentish pick to give us a couple of prospects. How would Richmond be feeling right now? Bloody hell, 8 picks. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I think we can maybe nab one of those by trading back in, or one of GWS's picks. GWS have got 2. I still think we can maybe trade a future for one of their picks, potentially, considering where they are.
Surely they'd want to
necessarily
stagger it over 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. So there's those two clubs that I think in our wheelhouse. I wanted to ask you about that reaction from Eagles fans, though. The way in which the vitriol spread over the internet, and the fact that someone like Liam Baker even mentioned it in one of his first interviews after signing. I think his comment was, "Yeah, thanks for the welcome." People were, sliding into his DMs and saying, "Mate, we gave up too much for you, and thanks for costing us pick 3." Like, seriously? I get that we've had 4 bad years, and we're a passionate fan base, and people are desperate for success. I understand all that, but we don't cover ourselves in glory across our supporter base at the moment when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah,
it's a little bit poor.
I would guess it's just the build-up of frustration of a lot of losing. And then probably because we haven't nailed all of our picks recently, and maybe, the trade back for Chesser, and I guess, does that build up a bit? I mean, we traded back with Jimby and Hewitt as well, didn't we? To a later pick. So maybe there was just a sense that it built up where I was like, okay, we've got Harley again. We've got Harley in. It'd be nice to get some more really top-end talent, and we had sort of pick 3 there, and everyone was excited for us to go and get another, genuine gun youngster, which he guaranteed at 3. So then there was some frustration that we gave it away, and there was probably some annoyance at Hawthorn, which then gets funneled just back at West Coast, even though it was them that traded away the pick. So, mate, I get that's the build-up of some frustration, which we've all had at the club over the last few years. So, but it was just channeled through Baker, unfortunately. It's not his fault.
Yeah, exactly right. And yeah, we haven't made some moves in recent times. Only Hewitt, Jimby, one for Sheasel. Like, I get that, but we haven't seen Elijah Hewitt on the park yet, so we can't judge that fully. If Elijah Hewitt has a full season and produces what we think he can, well, again, as brilliant as Harry Sheasel is, I'm as big a Harry Sheasel fan as there is around the place. Jimby and Hewitt, without the risk of that player going home, and there was a massive go-home concern around Sheasel and Wardlaw in that draft, again, still can be viewed as a net gain, potentially. It wasn't a good seeing Elijah Hewitt back at training yesterday, and the vision that we saw. I think someone sent it to me and actually time-coded it. A minute 16 on that video that the Eagles put out yesterday, Elijah Hewitt's spin move back into traffic and getting rid of it. You went, wow. I mean, let's not forget how talented this kid can be and how shrewd he looks off the field and how good of a leader he seems to be. We just need to get that kid on the park. It's been a huge absence so far, albeit so early in his career.
Very excited about Elijah Hewitt, and I invested in him in a keeper league draft. So I'm happy to have Elijah for life. Thank you very much.
Very nice, Drewy. Anything else on your mind, Eagles related, that you want to touch on from all the goings on in the off season?
I think we've covered it all off. I think go into the draft with enthusiasm and excitement. I think that's the key. For me, it feels like midfielders, at least with our first 2 picks. Like, definitely the first pick. Like, I go through the fandom drafts. I'm sure a lot of Eagles fans are the same. I don't even read the tall forward options. I'm like, no. Why? We got Allen, we got Waterman, Archer Reed coming through, and we've drafted a young ruckman in Barnett. We don't need any of those. We got Flynn and Bailey Williams. Key backs, there's Edwards and Bazzo to support McGovern. No, just mids, please. That's what we need. We need a couple more classy mids, and then maybe we take like a Jack Williams type
later on with a late pick that's, a bit more of a project player. But it feels like we just need good ball users, good quick players who can get through our engine room.
Yeah, that's why I like the Lindsay one, like the ball use and the versatility, because we can't just draft mids who just, I guess if they're absolutely superstars, then yes, but it'd be nice to have some versatility, someone that can float off half back or go half forward and have spurts in the midfield, and a smart enough player that they can play multiple roles and use the ball well. Like, that's what we want. And it sounds like McQualter wants pace and pressure, so I'm sure he'll take that into account as well.
Has Campbell Chester got a half back this season?
Well, we've got to do something. We've got to try something with him. It hasn't worked so far. I think we've got to stay patient, but we haven't seen enough yet. So a different role for him would be nice. Everyone else gets sent to half back to find a new lease on life in their footy career. So why not Campbell Chester?
He's out of contract end of the season, so there's not much room for patience. Like, he has to play well up until the halfway point of the season, or else I don't see what's going to happen with him. So, yeah, it feels like that could be the role. I know Baker's going back there as well, but, maybe Tommy Cole moves up to a wing. He's got a bit more experience. He can find the ball a bit more, and Chester tries to give us some run off half back. We have to try and free him up in some way. It's hard to play wing in a struggling side, but then we might be a lot better next year, and he can find a bit more of it and build his confidence.
Yeah, well,
that'll be interesting.
The wing roles under McQualter might be slightly different, more Richmond-like. You never know. Be sort of the Cam McIntosh, Marlon Pickett style.
Nice thing, Jaden Hunt at training yesterday. Like, that's one guy you go, all he's done in the game, he's so experienced. He doesn't need to be there day one of preseason at his age. I thought that was a really good sign.
Yeah, he's a pro. I like to see it.
Yeah.
All right, mate.
We've covered it all. Thanks, Nest family.
It's great to be back.
Yeah. Welcome back, mate. And share with us your thoughts. If you want to get stuck into us for anything, go for your life. We can have some chat on Twitter before the next pod.
All right, we'll talk draft coming up soon.
Sounds good. Welcome back, Drewy.
Thanks, mate.